On a freezing winter night, under the pale glow of the moon, a tiny German Shepherd puppy lay frozen in the snow. Abandoned by those who saw him as worthless, left to face the cruel cold alone. But in the silence of the night, was there still hope? Would someone answer the silent cries of this helpless soul? Could God's grace reach even here, in the bleakness of despair? What happens next will remind us that no one, not even the smallest among us, is ever truly forsaken. The night was harsh, with icy winds slicing through the quiet streets of the small town. Lucas, a journalist known for his dedication and deep-rooted faith, pulled his coat tighter around him as he walked home. His footsteps crunched against the snow-covered ground, the sound the only break in the stillness. A long day of chasing stories had left him exhausted, but the peaceful solitude of the night gave him time to reflect. Lucas often felt that life's small moments carried deeper meaning, and tonight was no different. As he crossed a wide, empty lot, he felt an unusual sensation, a subtle but insistent pull deep within his chest. He slowed his pace, his instincts sharpened by years of following leads. The sensation was more than curiosity. It felt like a whisper, urging him to stop. He paused, glancing around the vacant lot blanketed in snow. At first, nothing seemed out of place. The soft glow of a distant street lamp illuminated the frosted weeds and patches of ice. Then, just as Lucas was about to move on, his eyes caught a faint shadow against the white expanse. His breath hitched as he stepped closer, his boots sinking into the snow. The shadow took shape, a small, unmoving figure partially buried in the icy ground. He squinted through the flurries, his heart pounding as he realized what it was. A puppy, barely visible under a thin layer of snow, lay motionless. The little German Shepherd hadn't always been alone. Max, as Lucas would later name him, had been born in the cold confines of an illegal puppy mill. His early days were spent crammed into a tiny cage with his siblings, their cries ignored as the days passed. Max's left front leg was bent awkwardly, a birth defect that marked him as imperfect in the eyes of the breeders. Max's mother, a weary dog worn thin from overbreeding, had tried to protect her litter. She would nuzzle them close, offering what warmth she could in the freezing, unsanitary conditions of the mill. But the humans who ran the operation had little patience for weakness. When they noticed Max's limp, they deemed him worthless. One fateful day, Max was ripped away from his mother's side, her desperate whimpers echoing through the cramped kennel. He was loaded into a filthy crate, taken far from the only comfort he had ever known. The breeders dumped him in an empty lot, a place where the harsh winter cold would do their bidding. For them, Max's life had no value. As Lucas knelt beside the fragile creature, the puppy's tragic story was etched into every shiver, every feeble breath. Lucas gently brushed the snow from its fur, feeling a surge of anger and sadness. This little dog had been cast aside, unloved and forgotten, but Lucas was determined that Max's story wouldn't end here. This wasn't an accident, Lucas muttered to himself, shaking his head. He removed his scarf and carefully wrapped it around the puppy, cradling it close to his chest. The tiny body felt unnervingly light, and Lucas could sense the urgency of the situation. "You're coming home with me," he said softly. "I'll take care of you." The puppy had no collar or name, and Lucas, deeply moved by the fragile creature before him, decided in that moment to give it a second chance at life. The soft glow of the morning light filtered through Lucas's apartment, illuminating the small, makeshift bed he had prepared for Max. The puppy stirred slightly, his fragile body still recovering from the night's cold. Lucas crouched beside him, carefully observing the little dog's movements. As he reached out to stroke Max's fur, his fingers brushed over something rough, a patch of skin that felt raw. Gently, Lucas lifted Max's paw, his heart sinking as he noticed signs of redness and chafing. His gaze shifted to the puppy's thin frame, where faint scars and patches of missing fur told a painful story. The signs were undeniable. Max had been neglected and likely abused. "You've been through so much, haven't you?" Lucas whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He could feel his faith stirring within him, urging him to take action. "But you're safe now, Max. No one will hurt you again." Though the name had come to him instinctively, Lucas felt it fit perfectly. "Max," he repeated softly, running his hand along the puppy's side. "It means strength. And you, little one, are a survivor." Max's dark eyes fluttered open for a moment, meeting Lucas's gaze with a mixture of fear and curiosity. It was as if he sensed the kindness in the man before him. Lucas offered a small smile, determined to prove to the puppy that not all humans were cruel. Later that morning, Lucas bundled Max into a soft blanket and carried him to the local veterinary clinic. Dr. Sarah, a compassionate woman in her late 30s, greeted them with a reassuring smile. "You found him in the snow?" she asked, her brow furrowing as she carefully examined Max. Lucas nodded. "He was barely alive when I found him. No collar, no sign of where he came from. Dr. Sarah's gentle hands worked quickly, her trained eyes scanning Max's frail body. She frowned as she pressed lightly on the puppy's limbs, testing for injuries. "This little guy has been through a lot," she said. "He's malnourished and his paws show signs of severe frostbite. And these scars?" Her voice trailed off as she pointed to the faint lines along Max's belly and legs. "Abuse?" Lucas asked, his jaw tightening. Dr. Sarah nodded grimly. "Most likely. He's also underweight for his age, which suggests he wasn't being properly cared for. But with time, love, and proper care, he has a chance to recover." Lucas felt a wave of anger and sadness wash over him. The thought of anyone intentionally harming Max was unbearable. But alongside his anger was a growing resolve, a determination to uncover the truth. Back at home, Lucas sat at his desk. Max curled up on a blanket beside him. The puppy had eaten a small meal and seemed to be resting more comfortably. But Lucas's mind was restless. He couldn't shake the image of Max's scars or the haunting thought of where the puppy had come from. As a journalist, Lucas had spent years chasing leads and uncovering hidden stories. This time, the story had come to him. He began researching cases of animal abuse and illegal puppy mills in the area, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Hours passed as Lucas pieced together a disturbing picture. Reports of abandoned dogs, many of them sick or injured, had been increasing in the region. Witness accounts hinted at a network of breeders operating under the radar, churning out litters of puppies with little regard for their health or well-being. Lucas leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. The evidence was mounting, and it all pointed to one conclusion. Max was likely a victim of an illegal puppy mill. As the day turned to evening, Lucas knelt beside Max, who had begun to wag his tail faintly whenever Lucas approached. The small gesture filled Lucas with hope, a reminder that even in the face of cruelty, healing was possible. "You're a fighter, Max," he said softly, stroking the puppy's head. "And I promise you, we'll get to the bottom of this. No one else should have to go through what you did." Lucas felt his faith burn brighter as he prepared to take the next steps. Guided by his belief in justice and compassion, he knew that saving Max was just the beginning. Now it was time to uncover the truth and ensure no other animals would suffer the same fate. Lucas sat at his desk late into the night, poring over his research. Every article, report, and anonymous tip painted the same picture, a network of illegal puppy mills operating in the shadows. Max's scars, malnourishment, and abandonment were no accident. They were part of a systemic cruelty that demanded justice. With each piece of evidence, Lucas's resolve grew stronger. He compiled photographs of Max's injuries, veterinary notes from Dr. Sarah, and reports from local shelters describing similar cases of abused and abandoned dogs. When his file was complete, he reached for his phone and dialed the local precinct. "Officer Daniels." A steady voice answered on the other end. "Officer, my name is Lucas Hayes. I'm a journalist, and I have reason to believe there's an illegal puppy mill operating nearby," Lucas began. He detailed Max's story, the evidence he had gathered, and the growing trail of clues pointing to a single location on the outskirts of town. There was a pause before Officer Daniels spoke again, his tone firm but understanding. "We've suspected activity in that area for a while, but your evidence might be what we need to act. Let's set up a meeting." 2 days later, Lucas found himself at the police station, presenting his findings to a small team of officers. Max's story seemed to touch even the most stoic among them. Officer Daniels, a grizzled man with kind eyes, nodded solemnly as Lucas finished. "We'll act on this," Daniels said. "We'll need your cooperation for documentation, but I warn you, the scene may not be easy to witness." Lucas swallowed hard but nodded. "I'm ready. Whatever it takes." The raid was scheduled for early morning, under the cover of pre-dawn darkness. Lucas joined the officers as they drove to the isolated property. His heart pounded as they approached, the dilapidated buildings coming into view. The faint sound of barking carried through the cold air, mingling with the crunch of tires on gravel. The team moved quickly, cutting through locks and storming the property. Lucas stayed back, camera in hand, documenting the harrowing sights. The first building they entered revealed rows of cramped cages stacked on top of each other. Inside were dogs of all breeds and sizes, their eyes wide with fear. The conditions were beyond appalling. Feces and urine coated the floors, the air thick with the stench of neglect. Many of the dogs were severely underweight, their ribs visible beneath matted fur. Some lay motionless, too weak to stand. Others cowered in corners, their bodies trembling. Lucas's stomach churned as he photographed the scene, his lens capturing every detail. A small beagle whined pitifully from its cage, its paw reaching through the bars as if pleading for help. In another corner, a Labrador lay protectively over her puppies, her eyes filled with exhaustion. Officer Daniels approached Lucas, his expression grim. "We've found over 50 dogs so far, most in critical condition. This is one of the worst we've seen." Lucas nodded, his throat tight. He wanted to scream, to demand how anyone could let this happen. But instead, he focused on his mission. Each click of his camera was a promise, to Max, to the other dogs, and to himself, that he would tell their story. The rescue operation continued for hours as officers carefully removed the dogs from their cages and carried them to waiting vehicles. Local veterinarians had been called in to provide immediate care, and Lucas watched as the once desperate animals were wrapped in blankets and given water. Max's face flashed in his mind with every dog he saw. He couldn't help but think of how close Max had come to sharing their fate. By the time the last dog was loaded into a van, the sun had risen, casting a pale light over the grim property. Lucas stood beside Officer Daniels, staring at the now empty cages. "This isn't over," Daniels said, breaking the silence. "We've shut this place down, but there are more out there. People like this don't stop until they're held accountable." Lucas nodded, his hands clenched into fists. "And they will be? I'll make sure of it." That evening, back at home, Lucas knelt beside Max, who greeted him with a faint wag of his tail. The sight brought a small smile to Lucas's face, a brief reprieve from the heaviness of the day. "You're safe now, Max," Lucas said softly, stroking the puppy's head. "And so are the others, but this is just the beginning." As Max rested his head on Lucas's lap, Lucas felt a renewed sense of purpose. The images he had captured and the story he would write wouldn't just expose the horrors of the puppy mill, they would shine a light on the resilience of dogs like Max, who despite everything, still dared to trust and hope. Lucas closed his eyes, a quiet prayer forming on his lips. "Thank you, Lord, for guiding me to Max. Help me continue to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." Max lay curled in his bed, his body tense despite the warmth of Lucas's apartment. Every sudden sound, whether the clinking of dishes or the creak of a chair, made his ears twitch and his eyes dart nervously. His small frame seemed to carry an invisible weight, the lingering shadows of a past filled with fear and neglect. Lucas watched from across the room, his heart heavy with empathy. He knew the road to recovery would not be easy for Max. The scars on the puppy's body were physical reminders of his ordeal, but Lucas suspected the deeper wounds were hidden, the ones left on Max's heart and mind. "You've been through so much, little guy," Lucas said softly, kneeling beside Max. He reached out a hand slowly, giving Max time to see him. Max flinched but didn't pull away completely. It was a small step, but Lucas took it as progress. Over the next few days, Lucas devoted himself to helping Max adjust. Guided by his faith, he approached each interaction with patience and love. He set up a quiet corner of the apartment just for Max, lining it with soft blankets and toys to create a sense of safety. He spoke in soothing tones, often reading aloud or humming hymns as he sat nearby, giving Max the space to approach on his own terms. At first Max remained distant, often retreating to his bed when Lucas moved too quickly or spoke too loudly. The sight was heartbreaking, but Lucas refused to give up. "Trust takes time," he reminded himself. "And you deserve all the time you need, Max." One evening, after a particularly long day, Lucas settled on the floor near Max's corner with a plate of shredded chicken. He held out a small piece, careful to keep his movements slow and deliberate. "Here you go, buddy," Lucas said, his voice warm and inviting. Max sniffed the air cautiously, his dark eyes flicking between the food and Lucas. After what felt like an eternity, he took a tentative step forward, his paws barely making a sound on the floor. He sniffed the chicken again before gently taking it from Lucas's hand. "There you go," Lucas murmured, a smile spreading across his face. "See? You can trust me." Max retreated to his bed, but the interaction was a breakthrough. For the first time, Lucas felt a glimmer of hope that Max was beginning to trust him. The turning point came a week later. Lucas was sitting at his desk, typing up his article about the puppy mill raid, when he felt a soft nudge against his leg. Looking down, he saw Max standing beside him, his tail wagging faintly. "Max," Lucas said, his voice filled with surprise and joy. The puppy looked up at him, his eyes no longer clouded with fear. Lucas reached down, and this time, Max didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned into Lucas's hand, his small body relaxing for the first time. Lucas felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. He stroked Max's fur gently, overwhelmed by the moment. "Thank you, God," he whispered. "For this gift, for this trust." As the days turned into weeks, Max's progress continued. He began following Lucas around the apartment, wagging his tail more often and even playing with the toys Lucas had left for him. The once terrified puppy now sought comfort in Lucas's presence, curling up beside him during quiet evenings and resting his head on Lucas's lap. Each small victory felt monumental to Lucas. He saw Max's trust as a reflection of God's blessings, a reminder that love and patience could heal even the deepest wounds. One night, as Max lay peacefully beside him, Lucas stroked the puppy's head and smiled. "We've come a long way, haven't we, Max? And the best is yet to come." In that moment, surrounded by warmth and the quiet companionship of Max, Lucas felt a profound sense of gratitude. The bond they had formed was more than just a connection between man and dog. It was a testament to the power of faith, love, and the unshakable resilience of the spirit. The Sunday morning sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of St. Mary's Church, casting colorful patterns across the pews. Lucas stood at the front, Max resting quietly at his feet. The congregation watched in silence as Lucas took a deep breath, preparing to speak. "I want to share a story," Lucas began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "A story about second chances, about faith, and about the incredible resilience of one small soul." He recounted the night he found Max, the puppy's frail body trembling in the snow, abandoned but alive. He spoke about the scars Max bore, both seen and unseen, and the horrors of the puppy mill they had uncovered. The congregation listened intently, many dabbing their eyes as Lucas described the conditions he had witnessed during the raid. "Max isn't just a survivor," Lucas said, looking down at the puppy who gazed back at him with trust-filled eyes. "He's a reminder that no matter how broken we feel, there's always hope. God doesn't abandon us, even in our darkest moments. And it's up to us to extend that same love and compassion to others, human or animal." The story of Max and the puppy mill raid quickly spread throughout the small town, amplified by Lucas's article in the local newspaper. The vivid photos and heartfelt words struck a chord with readers. Shelters began receiving more calls from people interested in adopting rescue animals. Donations poured in, and volunteers stepped forward to help care for the dogs rescued during the raid. Lucas received messages from strangers thanking him for bringing attention to the issue. At grocery stores and coffee shops, people stopped him to ask about Max and to share their own stories of rescue and redemption. One afternoon, Lucas was approached by a young boy and his mother as he walked Max through the park. The boy knelt down, gently petting Max's fur and said, "Thank you for saving him. He looks happy now." Lucas smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. "He's more than happy, he's a fighter," Lucas replied, ruffling Max's ears. The boy's mother looked at Lucas with admiration. "Your story inspired us to adopt a dog from the shelter. She's changed our lives." Lucas nodded, feeling a sense of purpose that had once eluded him. "That's the power of love," he said simply. Max had become a symbol of resilience in the community. His story reminded people that every life had value and that kindness could transform even the most dire circumstances. Local businesses began organizing fundraisers for animal shelters, and the church held a special service to bless rescued animals. One evening, as Lucas sat by the fireplace with Max curled up beside him, he reflected on how much had changed since that fateful night in the snow. His faith, already strong, had deepened through this journey. He had seen firsthand how compassion could ripple outward, touching lives in unexpected ways. "Max," Lucas said softly, stroking the dog's fur. "You've done more than survive. You've inspired a whole town to care, to act, to believe in second chances." Max let out a contented sigh, his small tail wagging as if in agreement. At the next church service, Lucas stood before the congregation once again, his voice steady and full of conviction. "This isn't just about one dog," he said. "It's about what we're called to do as people of faith. To love, to protect, and to uplift those who can't speak for themselves. Whether it's a neighbor, a stranger, or a creature like Max, every act of kindness matters." The room erupted in applause, and Lucas felt a wave of hope wash over him. The journey wasn't over, but the seeds of change had been planted. Max had found his second chance, and in helping him, Lucas had found his purpose. Together, they had reminded an entire community of the power of faith, love, and compassion to drive meaningful change. The morning sun poured through the windows of Lucas's apartment, warming the wooden floors and casting a golden glow over the room. Max lay sprawled on a soft blanket near the fireplace, his tail thumping lazily as Lucas approached with a bowl of food. "Breakfast is served, buddy," Lucas said cheerfully, placing the bowl down. Max perked up, his ears twitching as he sniffed the air. His once timid demeanor had begun to transform, and now he approached the bowl with enthusiasm, his tail wagging in gratitude. Lucas watched with a smile, marveling at the difference a few weeks of care and love had made. Max's coat, once patchy and dull, had grown soft and shiny. The puppy's movements, which had been hesitant and cautious, were now confident and curious. "You're thriving, Max," Lucas said softly, crouching to scratch behind the puppy's ears. "Just look at you." Lucas had made adjustments to his home to accommodate Max's needs, ensuring the puppy felt safe and comfortable. He had cleared space near the windows so Max could bask in the sunlight, installed soft rugs to make walking easier, and even built a small ramp to help Max navigate the stairs. Max had quickly taken to exploring his surroundings, his playful side emerging as he grew more confident. He would nudge Lucas's hand when he wanted attention or pounce on a toy with a joyful bark. One evening, as Lucas sat at his desk working on an article, Max appeared at his feet with a plush ball clutched in his mouth. Lucas laughed, pushing his chair back to join in the game. They spent the next hour tossing the ball back and forth, Max's excitement filling the room with energy. "You're a natural entertainer," Lucas said, chuckling as Max proudly retrieved the ball for the 10th time. Despite the joy Max brought, Lucas often found himself reflecting on the raid that had saved him. The images of the other dogs, their eyes filled with fear and desperation, still haunted him. But those memories also served as a reminder of how far Max had come and how much work was left to do for animals like him. One quiet evening, Lucas sat by the fireplace with Max curled up beside him. He stroked the puppy's fur, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "God brought you into my life for a reason," Lucas said aloud, his voice soft but steady. "You're living proof that love and faith can heal even the deepest wounds." Max tilted his head as if he understood, his tail wagging gently in response. As the days turned into weeks, Max and Lucas settled into a routine that was filled with love and companionship. They began taking walks through the park, where Max's boundless energy and wagging tail often drew the attention of passers-by. Children would stop to pet him, and Max, once so fearful of human touch, would greet them with enthusiastic licks. At home, Max had claimed a spot on the couch as his own, often curling up beside Lucas during quiet evenings. Lucas found solace in those moments, realizing how much Max's presence had transformed his life. One night, as Lucas prepared for bed, he knelt beside Max's bed and whispered, "You've come so far, Max. You're strong, brave, and so full of life. I'm proud of you." Max wagged his tail, his eyes bright with trust and affection. For Lucas, Max's recovery was more than just a personal triumph. It was a testament to the power of faith and love. Together, they had built a life filled with joy and purpose, a reminder that even in the face of cruelty, hope could flourish. The chill of winter gradually gave way to the gentle warmth of spring, and the once barren trees outside Lucas's apartment began to bloom with vibrant green leaves. The town seemed to awaken with the season, the streets filled with the sounds of laughter and birdsong. For Lucas, the arrival of spring felt like a reflection of his journey with Max, a season of renewal and hope. Max trotted beside Lucas as they strolled through the park, his tail wagging steadily. The puppy's coat shone under the soft sunlight, and his steps were confident, his limp barely noticeable. Passers-by often stopped to admire him, their smiles widening as Lucas shared the story of how Max had gone from a nameless, abandoned puppy to a symbol of resilience. One morning, Lucas sat on a bench, watching Max sniff at the budding flowers nearby. He couldn't help but reflect on that fateful night in the snow. It felt like a lifetime ago when he had found Max, shivering and fragile, on the brink of giving up. "You've come so far, buddy," Lucas said softly, his voice filled with pride. Max turned to look at him, his bright eyes filled with trust and affection. In that moment, Lucas was reminded of how much his life had changed since Max had entered it. Their bond, built on faith and compassion, had not only transformed Max but had given Lucas a renewed sense of purpose. Word of Max's story continued to spread, reaching beyond their small town. Lucas had been invited to speak at local schools, shelters, and even community events, sharing the lessons he had learned through his journey with Max. His message was simple yet profound. No life is ever truly broken, and love has the power to heal even the deepest wounds. At one event, Lucas held Max's leash as he addressed a crowd. "This little guy right here is proof that second chances matter," he said, gesturing to Max, who wagged his tail as if in agreement. "He was abandoned, forgotten, and hurt. But he fought to survive, and now he's thriving. We all deserve that. A chance to heal, to grow, and to find joy again." The applause that followed was thunderous, and Lucas felt a surge of gratitude. Max had become more than just a pet, he was a beacon of hope, inspiring others to believe in the power of compassion and second chances. At home, the routines Lucas and Max had built together continued to bring them joy. Max would wait patiently by the door every morning, eager for their walks. In the evenings, he would curl up beside Lucas, his small body radiating warmth and contentment. One particularly beautiful evening, Lucas and Max sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, and the world seemed at peace. Lucas reached down to scratch Max behind the ears, his heart full. "You know, Max," he said, his voice soft. Finding you wasn't just about saving you. It was about saving me too. You've reminded me of what it means to have faith, to love and to keep going even when things feel impossible. Max let out a contented sigh, his tail thumping lightly against the wooden porch. As the seasons continued to change, Lucas and Max faced each day with a shared sense of purpose. Their journey wasn't just about overcoming challenges, it was about finding strength in each other and inspiring others to do the same. Together, they looked to the future, knowing their story was part of a greater plan. And as Lucas gazed at the stars that night, with Max resting peacefully at his side, he whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. "Thank you, Lord," Lucas said, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "For this journey, for this bond, and for reminding us all that there's always hope." Max's journey from an abandoned fragile puppy to a thriving symbol of hope reminds us of the extraordinary power of love, faith and second chances. Through Lucas's unwavering devotion and trust in God's guidance, Max not only found a new life but also became a testament to the miracles that happen when we open our hearts to those in need. This story is more than just about saving a dog. It's about the divine hand of God leading us to where we're needed most. Lucas believed it was no coincidence that he found Max on that cold winter night. It was God's way of showing that even in the harshest moments, there is a plan, a purpose, and an opportunity to bring light into the darkness. Let Max's story remind us all that God's love knows no bounds, and through him, we have the strength to transform lives, no matter how broken they may seem. As you reflect on this tale, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a moment where you felt God guiding you to make a difference? Or perhaps you've been blessed by the companionship of a rescue animal. We'd love to hear your story. And if this journey of faith and compassion touched your heart, please share it with someone who could use a reminder of God's grace and the hope found in second chances. May God bless you and your loved ones abundantly, and may you always find strength in His love. Together, let's continue to spread kindness, faith, and the belief that every life matters.